I stood before a crowd of men I had known my entire life, gasoline soaking through my clothes and pooling at my feet, while my own cousin held a lit torch and demanded I deny Jesus Christ or burn alive for preaching his gospel in secret inside the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But the moment the flames touched my body, something happened that no one in that courtyard could deny. Something that left 30 witnesses paralyzed where they stood and changed the course of every life present. Have you ever been so sure of something that you were willing to die for it, even when everyone you loved was begging you to let it go? My name is Sultan Rashid Al-Dosari. I am 29 years old, and on June 3rd, 2022, I was dragged into the inner courtyard of my family's estate outside Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, doused in gasoline and set on fire for secretly preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ to Muslim workers and servants across 3 royal households. I had no idea that the Jesus I was willing to die for was about to reveal his power in a way that would save my life and shatter the faith of every man who tried to end it. I grew up in the Al-Muhammadiyah district of Jeddah, inside a compound large enough to hold 4 families, with walls so high you could not see the street, and a private mosque built into the eastern wing where my father led prayers 5 times a day. The streets beyond our gates smelled of the Red Sea, grilled shawarma, and the sharp sweetness of bukhur incense that drifted from every open window. My father, Rashid Turki Al-Dosari, was a senior religious endowment director with close ties to the royal court and a man whose reputation for piety was spoken about in mosques from Jeddah to Medina. My mother, Maryam, wore the full niqab even in front of extended family and spent every Saturday morning teaching Quran recitation to young girls in our home. My grandfather had funded the construction of 11 mosques across the Western Province. His name was engraved above the entrance of each one. In our family, Islam was not faith, it was identity, it was bloodline. It was the air itself. While other boys my age played football on the beach or spent evenings in shopping malls, I knelt on the marble floor of our family mosque and memorized the Quran. By 15, I had completed full memorization, every surah, every ayah. The Imam wept during my completion ceremony and told my father, "Allah has blessed your family with a son who will carry the light of this faith forward for generations." I never missed a single prayer, not once, not even the year I broke my ankle and had to be carried to the prayer mat by my older brother. During Ramadan, I fasted with joy and added voluntary fasts throughout the year because I wanted Allah to know my worship was not seasonal. It was permanent. My father began teaching me about Christians before I entered secondary school. He said they were misguided people who had taken a human prophet and turned him into a god, committing the ultimate sin of shirk. He told me their Bible had been rewritten so many times it held no truth at all. He said every missionary who entered the kingdom was a soldier in a spiritual war designed to pull Muslims away from the straight path, and that every Bible they smuggled in was a weapon aimed at the heart of our faith. By 17, I was part of a volunteer network that monitored foreign workers in our district for signs of Christian activity. We reported housemaids who prayed with rosaries. We confiscated crosses found during inspections. I once watched a group leader slap a Filipino man across the face for carrying a small New Testament in his pocket. I did not flinch. I believed we were protecting the house of God. I had no idea that the God we claimed to protect was already preparing to show me his real face. By 23, I held a degree in business administration from King Abdulaziz University and managed a portfolio of family investments worth tens of millions of riyals. I was engaged to Lamia bint Fahad, the daughter of a prominent scholar, a woman as devoted as my mother. I had everything, wealth beyond measure, a name that opened every door, the approval of my father and my community. Ask yourself this question. Have you ever built your entire life on something you were absolutely certain could never break? The crack that broke it came from the most unexpected place. In March 2020, during the first months of the pandemic, our family compound went into lockdown. Travel stopped, gatherings ended. For the first time in my life, I found myself alone with silence for weeks. I began reading, not just the Quran, everything. One evening, out of sheer curiosity, I searched online for an Arabic Bible. I told myself I wanted to understand the enemy's book so I could argue against it more effectively. I opened the Gospel of Matthew and began to read. I had no idea that what I read that night would begin a slow earthquake beneath every certainty I had ever held. The words were not what I had been told. They were not weak. They were not corrupted. They were alive. Jesus spoke with an authority that sounded nothing like the defeated prophet my father had described. He healed the sick. He forgave the unforgivable. He wept for people who hated him. I read for 6 hours without stopping. When I closed the laptop, my hands were shaking. Not with anger, with something I had no name for. I had no idea that the Jesus I had been taught to reject was pulling me toward him with a force I could not resist. Over the following months, I read the entire New Testament in secret, 3 times. I found an underground Christian fellowship operating through encrypted channels across the Gulf. I made contact with a man who called himself Brother Johannes, an Eritrean pastor who had been ministering to secret believers in Saudi Arabia for 11 years. We met once a week in the storage room of a cleaning supply warehouse in the industrial district of Jeddah. The room smelled of bleach and floor polish. A single fluorescent light buzzed overhead. 7 plastic chairs sat in a circle. There was no stained glass, no organ music, no golden altar. But there was a peace in that room that I had never felt in any mosque, no matter how grand. It pressed against my chest like warm water. Brother Johannes answered every question I had. He never pressured me. He simply showed me who Jesus was and let the truth do the work. I had no idea that the path I was walking would lead me first to a family I never expected, and then to a fire that would test whether everything I believed was real. Have you ever been so convinced you knew the truth that discovering you were wrong felt like the ground disappearing beneath your feet? The night I gave my life to Christ was quiet and holy. No cathedral, no stained glass, no organ music. Just that basement room, 7 people on plastic chairs, and the warmth of a single electric heater humming against the concrete wall. Brother Johannes opened his Bible and read to me from the Gospel of John. Then he asked me if I was ready. I nodded. He led me in prayer. I bowed my head and said the words that would cost me everything and give me everything at the same time. Jesus, I have been wrong about you my entire life. My family taught me to hate you. My country taught me to fear your name. But I have read your words and I have felt your presence in this room. I know you are real. I know you are who you claim to be. Forgive me for every Bible I helped burn. Forgive me for every believer I helped punish. Save me. I surrender my life to you completely. The room went silent for a long moment. Then Hannah, an Ethiopian houseworker who had been a secret believer for 9 years, began to weep. Then everyone was weeping. They embraced me like a son who had finally come home after years of being lost. I was baptized that same night in a plastic storage tub filled with warm water. Brother Johannes poured it over my head 3 times and gave me a new name, Paul. After the man who hunted the church and then became its greatest voice, I chose that name because I knew in my bones that my story was not meant to stay hidden in that basement forever. I could not keep the gospel to myself. Over the following year, I shared my faith in secret. I spoke to servants in our household. I met with drivers and cooks and gardeners from Pakistan and Bangladesh and the Philippines who worked inside royal compounds and had never heard a Saudi speak the name of Jesus with love. I organized small gatherings in rented storage units and back rooms of laundry facilities. Within 14 months, over 40 people had heard the gospel through me, and 11 Muslim men had surrendered their lives to Christ. I was careful. But secrets do not survive forever in a kingdom built on surveillance. Ask yourself this question: what would you do if the thing that gave your life the most meaning was also the thing most likely to destroy it? In May 2022, my cousin Bandar found a Bible hidden in the lining of a bag in my closet. He found notebooks filled with handwritten scripture. He found encrypted messages on a phone I had forgotten to lock. He brought everything to my father. What happened next changed everything, and it destroyed everything I had built in a matter of days. Everything I believed was about to be shattered in ways I could not have imagined. My father did not yell. He did not strike me. He sat in his study and looked at the evidence spread across his desk and said nothing for a very long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold, flat, dead. "You are no longer my son. You are dead to this family. You have brought shame upon everything your grandfather built." My mother sent one text that night: "How could you do this to your father?" Then she blocked my number. Lamia returned the engagement ring through a servant. She never spoke to me again. I was stripped of access to family accounts. My name was erased from property deeds. Former friends held a janaza prayer for me, a funeral for the living dead. I had no idea that the cost was only beginning. That is when it happened, the worst night and the greatest night of my life. On June 3rd, 2022, Bandar and a group of men from our extended family came to the small apartment where I had been staying. They forced me into a vehicle. They drove me to the courtyard of a family property on the outskirts of Riyadh. 30 men stood in a circle. A metal chair sat in the center. They bound my hands. They poured gasoline over my head and shoulders. The fumes burned my eyes and throat. Bandar stood before me holding a lit torch and said, "Deny the Christian God. Say the Shahada. Return to Islam, or burn." I looked at the faces around me. Men I had grown up with. Men I had prayed beside, and I felt something I did not expect. Not fear, peace. A peace so deep it made no sense given what was about to happen. I closed my eyes and said, "I belong to Jesus Christ. I will not deny him. Do what you must." Bandar threw the torch. The gasoline caught. I felt heat surge across my right shoulder and arm. The flames climbed my sleeve. I smelled my own clothing burning. The heat was unbearable for 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I heard men shouting. I heard someone scream my name. And then everything stopped. The fire went out. Not slowly, not because someone threw water or sand. It stopped. Instantly, completely, as if an invisible hand had pressed down on every flame at once and suffocated it in a single moment. I opened my eyes. My clothes were charred and blackened. My skin was red and raw where the gasoline had soaked through. But I was not burned, no blistering, no melting, no open wounds, no damage that matched what 30 men had just watched happen with their own eyes. The air around me was warm, not fire warm, something else entirely, like standing inside an embrace, like being wrapped in a love so thick you could breathe it, like coming home to a place you did not know existed. Bandar dropped to his knees. 2 men stumbled backward and fell. My uncle's driver began weeping without sound. The courtyard was silent except for the wind. I looked at my hands, untouched. I looked at my arms, red skin, no blisters. I was alive, I was whole, and I understood what the three men in Nebuchadnezzar's furnace must have felt when they walked through flames and emerged without even the smell of smoke. I said out loud, "This is Jesus. This is the living God. He saved my life in front of your eyes." No one moved. No one argued. Ask yourself this question. How do you explain standing alive and unburned when 30 men watched fire consume your body? Bandar did not convert that night, but he never spoke against me again. 3 days later, he drove me to the Jordanian border. His last words were, "I do not understand what happened, but I know what I saw." I crossed into Jordan with nothing but a bag and the Bible that had started everything. 4 men who stood in that courtyard contacted me within 2 months through encrypted messages. 2 have since given their lives to Christ. The fire meant to destroy me became the testimony that opened hearts I could never have reached with words alone. I had no idea that the flames meant to kill me would become the most powerful sermon I would ever preach. Ask yourself this question. Could you walk through fire for something you believed? And if you survived, would you have the courage to keep walking? Today I live in Amman, Jordan, with my wife, a Christian woman named Miriam, whom I met at a house church that sheltered me during my first week as a refugee. She saw a man with charred clothes and reddened skin, and she did not see someone broken. She saw someone God had walked through fire to keep alive. We married in that same small church 4 months later, with white flowers and tears that would not stop. Brother Johannes traveled from Jeddah to officiate. 3 men I had led to Christ stood beside me as groomsmen. Over 80 Muslims have surrendered their lives to Jesus after hearing my testimony, many through encrypted video messages circulating quietly across the Gulf. I work with an underground ministry reaching seekers inside Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the Emirates through the same digital channels I once used to share Bible verses with palace servants. I still write letters to my parents by hand twice a year. I tell them I love them. I tell them about Miriam. I tell them about the God who walked into fire for me. No reply has ever come, but I send them because love does not stop. My daughter was born 5 months ago. The first sound she heard was not the adhan. It was a lullaby about Jesus that Miriam sang while I held them both and wept. I carry the faint scars on my right shoulder and arm every single day. I do not hide them. They are the signature of a God who does not abandon his own, not even inside a fire. I had no idea that the worst night of my life would become the most powerful testimony I would ever carry. Ask yourself this question. If God can walk a man through literal fire inside a hostile courtyard in Saudi Arabia and bring him out alive, what is stopping him from breaking through whatever wall stands between him and your heart right now? The Saudi prince who once monitored Christians and confiscated their Bibles no longer exists. In his place stands a follower of Jesus Christ who carries the scars of fire on his body and the gospel on his lips, and who would burn 1,000 times before he denied the one who saved him. Look inside your own heart right now. If he can transform someone like me, someone who hunted his people, burned his word, and grew up inside the most powerful Islamic family you can imagine, then he can absolutely transform you. No matter what you have done or where you come from, the same Jesus who stepped into that fire and stopped the flames with his own hand is standing before you right now through this very testimony. He is offering you the same love, the same protection, the same total transformation that pulled me alive out of a fire and rebuilt my life into something I never dreamed was possible. Jesus is calling you right now. Do not wait for flames to prove He is real. He is already pursuing you. He has been pursuing you since before you pressed play on this video. Will you let Him in and discover the love that not even fire can destroy?